everyone, and welcome to episode 493 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week. Kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. Just catching up on Bloomburrow previews. There's a lot of text on these cards, Seth. Every creature has like 4 modes.
We're getting less and less flavor text because there's just not room for flavor text anymore because the rules text takes it up. But we'll get into that as we go along. We got another co-host in Krim. Good morning, Krim. How are you today?
Morning. Pretty excited because I actually have not seen a single one of these cards. So I don't actually know.
Oh, we're gonna get the fresh off the cuff take from Krim. I've been doing spoiler videos for like the last week, so I've seen all these cards a million times. I'm excited to see what your perspective is, though, if you're seeing some of these for the first time. If you haven't figured it out by now, Bloomburrow spoilers, that's going to be pretty much the entire cast today. We have more than half the set now. We've been almost a week into spoiler season. There are a ton of ridiculous cards to talk about, and we're going to be breaking them all down today. So that is the overview of today's cast. Before we get into it, though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, and Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service and send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. Either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Bloomburrow. We have a huge list of spoilers. Like I said, we've got much of the set revealed, but I gotta know, Richard, you've seen some of these cards. What do you think of the set overall so far? Like, this is a set that way back in Chicago in February, Mark Rosewater told me, like, people are gonna love Bloomburrow. This is gonna be one of the big sets of the year. Is it living up to the hype so far, you think?
Okay, it may be because I woke up at 6 a.m., Seth. It may be, but I'm a little cranky today, and I don't like the set, Seth. It's too power creepy. It's too like unnecessarily like strong for no reason. It sounds dumb when you say it like that, right? But like, I don't know. There's just something where I'm like, well, look, it's another must-kill commander. Look, it's another arch-enemy commander. Like, why is there like 4 clauses on? It's the Nadu thing. Remember, you look at it, you're like, why does it need so much stuff on it? Like something's gonna go wrong here. So that's my takeaway from that. I don't know. Maybe I'll soften up on that when we play with the cards. But there's all these cards is just so overloaded, and I don't know how I feel about that really. Like, on one hand, it's like, cool, I can play with these cards. On the other hand, yeah. And then we'll talk about the gift mechanic. But I am. People are gonna be like, "Oh, Richard, you'll love it." But if you've been listening carefully, you'll know what my opinion on it is. But we'll get to that when we get there.
Oh yeah, I think this set. Someone said this is the most magic-y looking set in like a lot of years, and I think that's very true. It has like
what?
Just like the art and like the art and like the flavor of it. I mean, okay, maybe Ral being an otter is a little bit silly, but it's like, it's very traditional and whimsical. It's kind of like Eldraine or Lorwyn or something. I really like it. Like, yes, there are a ton of words on the cards, and yes, it's kind of power creepy. That's fair criticism, but I really like this set. What do you think, Krim? I know you haven't kept up on it, but you got any thoughts, or should we just jump into the cards?
I've only seen one card, and like from this whole list, and I think it looks cute, so that's about it. And obviously, yeah, this is pretty strong. That's so far the only general opinion I have of the Vren card, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I want to say, Seth, I'm so insulted by that comment. Do you know what the most magic-y set that's been released in the past 2 years is? It's Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
I'm not even joking. And then, when I look at basic lands, I bought all my special basic lands. You know what the most actual basic looking lands, you know what set they're from? They're from Baldur's Gate. right? Where you're like, look,
okay.
the forest looks like a forest. Bravo, right? The mountain looks like a mountain. We did it, right? So, ironically, the two most magic-y sets for me in the past have been Baldur's Gate, which is Universes Beyond. Don't be tricked. It is Universes Beyond. And then Lord of the Rings, which, to be fair, is like the grandfather of all fantasy or whatever. So great, But yeah, Lord of the Rings, the most magic-y set of all time.
At least you didn't say Doctor Who. I'll accept Lord of the Rings. That's fine as long as it's not Doctor Who. But we got a huge list of spoilers. Let's see how many we can get through today. Richard, why don't you take it away? Guide us through some of these spoiler cards.
All right, let's hit up some of these new mechanics. Some of which I don't even know what they're called. We're gonna call this the paw mechanic. Okay, there's like these little cute paw symbols.
That's a paw.
What if I call it energy set? It's another resource, but you have to get it and use it all on resolving
all
the
at
spell,
once.
okay? So, Season of Gathering, 4 green. It's a mythic sorcery in green. Choose up to 5 paws worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. For 1 paw, you can get a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. It gains vigilance and trample until end of turn. For 2 paws, choose artifacts or enchantments, destroy all permanents of the chosen type. For 3 paws, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So this is how I teach my son basic math. So if you want, you could be like, I want 5 paws on +1/+1 counter. So you can get +5/+5 vigilance and trample. Or you can be like 2 +1/+1 counters and then draw cards equal to the greatest power. Or you could go choose artifacts, choose enchantments, and then a +1/+1 counter or something. So, you can mix and match the modes. This is like super modal. And the greatest green card draw spell of all time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, right? Isn't this like just a ridiculous commander card? Like, if we look on EDH Rec, you'll see that the most played green cards are like ramp spells, traditional like Nature's Lore, rampant growth effects, and then the next most played are Rishkar's Expertise, Return of the Wild Speaker. Is this just the new best version of that effect, like the draw based on the power of a creature? I think it is, right? Like, this is just a Return of the Wild Speaker is really good because it's an instant, but I think this is at least close to that or on par with that.
I mean, yeah, this is pretty good. And again, maybe the opposite of Richard, where I just woke up at like 6 a.m. But I instead of cranky, I'm numb to it. So I'm like, oh, right? Like, but yeah, like this probably is going to be really, really powerful. I'm curious about how it's going to play, like specifically in standard, like all of these mechanics. But in Commander, yeah, sure, this will probably be the second best thing to Return of the Wild Speaker, because again, 5 mana, 3 plus 3/3, and instant speed. That's just going to be better, I think, in my opinion. But for behind, like the second option of that, this card's pretty good.
What do you think of this card not targeting with the first mode? That's the other thing that jumps out to me is like that first mode of putting a +1/+1 counter on a creature, giving vigilant trample, doesn't technically target the creature, which gameplay wise, I guess it means you can target your Lightning Greaves creature or whatever, which normally you couldn't do. Or if you have a pro green sword on something, you can still put the counter on it. I think the idea was to keep it from fizzling, because if that was the only mode that targeted and you wanted to draw cards and then the creature got killed. But it's also weird that we're in Valiant in this set, which cares about you targeting your creatures. So yes, it's not intuitive to new players that your entire spell fizzles if your 1/1 gets killed, but it's also not intuitive that this doesn't trigger your Valiant creatures that you open in your same booster pack. So I don't know. What do you think of the formatting?
I hate it. I hate the targeting but not targeting thing, right? Like, they should just fix the rules. They should just fix the rules to be casual friendly, that you can't fizzle spells anymore when stuff like this happens. But like, this doesn't work with Nadu, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. It's like the cloning effect, right? You know, when you clone, you don't target, right? And then you just had to know that was a special clause. But now they're just making it as part of just random rules. So I think they should just fix the rules to not fizzle.
Oh, I mean, come on, Richard, you got to stay sweaty, dude. That's good. That's good percentages. What are you doing, dude? No. What I am gonna say though is that, yeah, like I do not like spending 6 mana and then having my spell completely fizzled. So
Get good.
I think
get
this
good,
is
Krim.
yeah.
Get good.
I also agree. I agree though. Like you should get good and get got every once in a while. It's like, oh, maybe we don't play the 6 mana spell. But yeah, like I do like that they're trying to work around that. However, I hope this isn't like the trend of newer like design in that it gets around a lot of targeted stuff.
I feel like it might just be an exception for this card. There's no way this is seeing standard play, right? Like, I feel like outside of like some against odds deck or whatever, this isn't supposed to be a competitive standard card, I don't think. Am I missing anything? Okay.
6 mana +5/+5. I don't think so. Let's touch on the other parts. This is a cycle. White gets scuffed. So 5 white, 5 paws. 1 paw is a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. 2 paws, exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. 3 paws, return target permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. Do you play this outside of rabbits? Do you play this outside of rabbits?
So there is, okay, so it's designed for rabbits. That's the main home. Rabbits have a theme of like making a bunch of tokens, going super wide. I think in Commander, there is a place that this is relevant, which is the way these cards are formatted. That first mode, so let's say you choose 1 paw 5 times to make 5 tokens. It's essentially increasing devotion, right? Which is 5 mana, make 5/1/1, I think core tokens or whatever. The twist is though, each one of these tokens comes into play 1 by 1, which is pretty relevant for certain commanders. There's quite a few commanders these days that say when 1 or more creature comes into play, do a powerful thing. This is going to trigger all those 5 times. We see like the new the Kemble that makes a bunch of tokens and drains whenever 1 or more tokens comes into play. There's Bess that grows whenever you do it. So I actually think that those shenanigans are the biggest upside of this card, is like triggering those things a bunch of times.
I gotta get good, Seth. It's not obvious from the way.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Make this card that I need to understand the deep rules of Magic. But yeah, are there? Yeah, there are no other like token producers that make them in this fashion, right? Because increasing devotion just slaps 5 on the battlefield at the same time.
It's just 5 all at once,
right.
So it triggers 1 time. This is 5 1 by 1, so it triggers stuff 5 times. Yeah,
that sounds miserable. Like what is it? Cathar's Crusade resolving that?
Oh God. Oh, you're right. That does sound miserable.
I don't know if that's any more miserable than resolving Cathar's Crusade, though.
I guess, but why make it even more miserable to resolve?
Okay, let's say you're scuffed, though, Seth. You don't know this interaction. You're not a specific ETB token generating deck. Do you play for the second and third modes?
I mean, it's not horrible in Commander, right? We play Sevine's Reclamation sometimes, which is what, 4 mana? Return a permanent mana value.
It's first
3 or less?
3 mana. It has flashback at 5, and it gets 2 things on flashback. It's way better than this.
Think that you get Oblation. You get a like mini Oblation with the second mode for 2 paws, and then 3 more paws. You get like a bad Sevine's Reclamation with Indestructible. No, maybe no. I mean, I don't think
destroy 2 things, but then give your opponents 2 cards while you're at it at sorcery speed. Oh, compared to the green one, this one's
and you make a rabbit.
The art is nice though.
You could kill 2 things and get a rabbit. Like I don't know. And we're talking Commander. I think I'm gonna always like options. And anytime there's modal spells, I think we're being, maybe up front, none of these abilities are going to jump off the card. But I think just having modal abilities is going to be nice. So I actually think, Commander speaking, all of these so far are great.
All right. I'm sure Krim will love this one. The black.
Yeah, I got to see what Krim thinks of this one.
5 paws, once again, single paw. Each player sacrifices a creature. That's 1 paw, by the way. 2 paws. Draw a card for each creature you control that died this turn. 3 paws. Each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard.
I see why you were asking me if I like this card. Let me tell you something. This card is gas.
This is gas.
Hold on. This card is gas. Like, wait, are you joking? I know you're chuckling, Seth. The edict looks good. All right.
It's not an edict if you have to do it 5 times. That's called a wrap at this point, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
you do have
but
to
that's
stack
the
your
beauty of
own
it.
stuff. So it is
Yeah.
like an innocent blood or whatever. So keep that in mind. It's not just your opponent, but I still think
Yeah.
like it is essentially a Wrath when you need it to be. The drain mode, I think, can be pretty powerful in some decks. Plus, you might get to draw some cards. I think a lot of times you'll like edict, and then 2-paw mode to draw like at least 3 cards. So like triple edict plus
That's
draw 3.
absurd.
That's actually
really
like
good.
kind of invoke
Absurd.
despair or something almost, right? Like that seems like this
that's
card's
Liliana.
really strong. Yeah.
Or again, yeah, you can, and like I could see many games where like this is a late game way to answer stuff, but also like win the game. Also, like that 3-paw mode, each opponent loses life for X number of creature cards in your graveyard. Yo, this card is gas. And you know what? I'm willing to go as far as I like rotation will have happened by then, right?
Rotation happens with the set release, yeah. So it'll be rotated by the
Yes.
time
Oh,
this
you saying
drops.
standard playable? You saying standard playable,
This might get some standard play, but I'm not gonna like hype it up too much, then have a circle of loyalty on my hands. But I will say that I think this card looks promising. And I think this one is one of the ones where, depending how wide the format goes, this could just be a hard sweeper into like a billion draws, as if mono black needed more cards. But this looks good.
I think it's got a chance in standard. I think it'll depend partly on the meta. Like, if rabbits are good, then it's probably a little bit worse. I can't believe the words that I'm saying, but like if rabbits are really good, they make a lot of tokens, this gets worse. But yeah, so I think it'll depend. Like it would be actually very strong in our current meta, I think, where like everyone's playing these mid-rangey threats and whatnot. This is just gonna come down and sweep away everything, draw some cards. So I think the card's strong in standard and probably good in commander too.
Invoke despair,
Modal.
baby.
It's back. Modal spell.
It's 5 mana. Everyone sacks 3 creatures, and then you draw 3 if you happen to have 3 creatures. Insane. I think this is the best commander card here as well. Better
than the green one. Really?
Okay,
Ooh,
Last March of the
yeah.
Ents is the greatest green card draw spell of all time, but you know we don't have this like crazy Wrath / card advantage Wrath / endgame finisher in black in the same way, right? Like green already has this, and we play lots of them already. So your upgrade is not as great as Season of Loss, I don't think.
Yeah, okay. I think the green one's still better, but I think this one's really good too.
Last March of the Ends.
I think this one's
okay. Let's talk about some new mechanics, because when I think of Magic the Gathering, I think of making babies, Offspring. So Offspring is a new mechanic. It has a cost. So we're going to talk about Dark Star Augur. 3 mana, 2 and a black, 2/3. It's a normal creature. It's important. Bat Warlock. So Offspring black. So as you cast a spell, you can pay an additional black if you do. Create a 1/1 copy of this card as it ETBs. So Offspring, you make a little baby. That's a 1/1. Flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand, you lose life equal to its mana value. That's Bob.
Wait, this is Bob.
Huh?
That's Bob. But you can have 2
Bob
Bobs
is
for the
back?
cost of 4 mana.
It's like
I
Bob
don't
and
know- I don't know if
Vampire
I wanna
Nighthawk
toe
had a
the
baby.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do
great.
not want to toe the line of having 2 Bobs. All right, I think I've seen too many deaths to Bob.
I mean, this card's got to be good, right? This card, we've seen a lot of bad Bobs, and I know every time they print something that looks like Dark Confidant, and it always fails. But I think this card might actually be pretty good. Like a 2/3 flyer, fine body. You don't have to Offspring it, but you can if you want to. And then it gets around Sheoldred in older formats, I guess Bowmasters. Like it's card advantage that isn't actually card draw. Obviously, you got to be the right deck. If you just jam this in a deck that's got a bunch of 5-drops and 10-drops, you're gonna kill yourself. But it's like top end of like an aggro deck. This card's gotta be good. Or is Bob just bad in 2024?
I want to say that I think Bob in 2024 may not be as good as it once was.
Oh, that's
But
definitely true.
I think that's a tough pill to
okay?
swallow.
This is not dies the Orcish Bowmasters, except, well, the baby dies. But it is a legitimate body as well, right?
Is it
It's a
Yundable?
decent body, but all right, hear me out. Like, come on, it's a 3 mana 2/3, right? That I guess the Offspring mode makes it a little bit better, but I think this card is just passing the bar of playable. It really comes down to like bats in total. Like this has to be some kind of bat synergy piece because a lot of bats cost like 1 to 2 mana. This could be like the top end, yada, yada, yada. But like, I'm not playing this in a generic mid-range deck and praying that I flip a like loaded with Season of Loss in my deck.
It is worth mentioning, since you brought up bats, kind of the theme of bats in this set is they're cheap and a lot of them are life gain synergy stuff. You have like a Soul Sister bat, essentially, lifelink on bats. When the bat attacks, gain life. So I think it's designed to like help make up for the life loss if you play it in a bat deck, because a lot of your other bats are going to be gaining you life incidentally along the way. What do you think, Richard? Is this like a good card? You've played more Bobs than any of us.
I think it's borderline. Okay, let me tell you the secret. You never double Bob, okay? You only double Bob against like Infect, and that's how you get the Noble Hierarch kill as well, right? Like, so on one hand, you're like, well, if I play 2 Bobs, they remove one, I got one. So like, you like that, right? But if your opponent is wise, I think the right play is just to let them 2 Bob, right? And then you just start racing their face, because 2 Bobs is a little scary. So I think this is not modern playable. Maybe it's borderline playable standard. Maybe it's very good in standard, right? Depending on how slow the meta is. But like, if you have Soul Sisters as backup, like you need the life gain, I think, if you're gonna double Bob consistently. So if there's incidental life gain in standard, then you're good to go. But a 2/3 and a 1/1, on 4 mana is not as exciting as what we're gonna see what 4 mana can do in standard in 2024, right? Like you forget card advantage. You can just win the game for 4 mana, right? You don't need to sit here and flip cards on the top of your deck. So it's okay, and definitely, I'm not even gonna bother with this in modern. If that's what you're asking, it's not. It's not the next model.
Not good enough. What about the mechanic?
What about Pioneer? I can see this being played in Pioneer.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, mono black isn't as much of a thing as it used to be when Pioneer first came out, but it seems like the perfect mono black card. Like with those decks of playing all the 1-drops and the recursive 1-drops.
Yeah,
I would play it in that deck for sure. I don't know if that deck's like that good at the moment, but if that deck is good, I would play it in there for sure. What do you think of the Offspring mechanic? Like, this card aside, it's kind of another variant on Kicker in some ways, but it's cute, right? Like baby making.
Baby making's not bad. Baby making's not bad. I think it's like you said, a cute mechanic. It's very inline, very flavorful in themes of the set, right? So I like it. I like it as a mechanic. Baby making's dope. Is that what we're just gonna call it now instead of Offspring? Because
Wizards UX has gone out the window. This is clearly a digital mechanic. Right? Because in paper, what are you going to do? Put a copy token down? And you're like, well, what's that copy token? Well, that's my rabbit baby. And what's that copy token?
Oh, no, Richard.
That's a big... They made custom baby tokens?
It's way worse. It's way worse. This is actually a scam to make tokens more valuable, because each one of these does come with a custom baby token. So I think actually, so you can actually collect a custom baby token for each one of these. Yeah. So, which is actually kind of cool, I guess. But those tokens might actually have some value.
There's a meme. You know how we have deck boxes and they all have like slots for like 10 tokens? Like, soon enough, you're going to need like a 100 card deck and then 100 card token deck that goes around.
Yep. I'm just gonna now have to haul around a hive, right? Like our ultimate guard hives. Like,
ultimate guard hives. That's just the tokens for my deck, guys. All right.
Let me file through this real quick.
Wait, and I don't know about making babies. I feel this is it's a weird mechanic. It's like going to the bathroom, It's like, okay, we understand it's a part of life, but is this what I want my fantasy centered around? Like, I don't know, right?
What do you think happens in the woods, Richard? Do you think just like extra bats appear out of nowhere, out of thin air? Because what makes the stork that drops things off at the door?
It's the
Richard?
stork. It's the stork swoops in. Krim.
Okay.
Krim, let me tell you about the birds and the bees, son. It's time. It's time for me to introduce this life lesson to you with Offspring.
How did I get here, Dad? Teach me.
From the token box.
Camellia. Camellia the Seed Visor. 1 black and a green, 3 mana value, 3/3. It's a legendary creature, Squirrel Warlock. Menace. Other squirrels you control have menace. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a +1/+1 green squirrel creature token. 2 generic mana. Forage. Put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control. To forage, exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sacrifice a food.
I mean, okay, I'm looking at the art here. This is the art we saw a little earlier on. I'm going to say it again. The little bones or whatever that's green should be nuts. I just want nuts across this card. Why are there no nuts? And also on top of that, I am so sorry for any future spoilers. And if you see me chuckling, I am fighting every inner urge I have to say a D's nuts joke. Okay, so but then on top of that, I think this card's just solid. I think this is I like the look of this squirrel. I like that it's just funny seeing like squirrel support, right? This is the sacrificing of 1 or more foods creating a green squirrel seems pretty strong. My main thing is I don't know if I care about forage yet, but it is just an additional thing stapled on top of what is already a solid card.
And it's nice that if you forage in sack of food, then it makes a squirrel. So it's kind of like the army in a can thing going on. But I do think it's really cool to see like payoffs for foods being sacrificed. And we've seen foods being very powerful. So I think this card's actually really good. I'm not even sure how much of a squirrel card it is, or if it's like more of a food card. And then this is like the army in the can in your food deck and making a bunch of tokens as you're sacking food. In a squirrel deck, I don't know if I'd play this over like Chatterfang or something. I guess they synergize pretty well together because they're both like making squirrel tokens and extra tokens. But I don't know, can this see standard play, Krim? Like where does this fit? Like I'm trying to figure out where this fits. I feel like its base stats are good enough, right? As a 3/3 menace that in the right deck, it seems like it could be playable.
Honestly, I think this actually has a pretty damn good like chance of just being in standard. I think this is pretty powerful. It's just like you mentioned, it's just a generic thing that makes tokens, right? Or it makes tokens from the sacrificing of foods. I don't know how much food is going to be a center point of this set, but I have to assume that somewhere down the line, this is going to be a fresh standard, right? Or fresher standard. And with more sets coming down the line, if there isn't food synergies now, I think that if there is a food deck, it's going to probably play this card. Does this go infinite with anything in older formats? I feel like it does.
So there are...
Or when I say infinite, I mean like infinite bodies.
So there are infinite combos. I don't know, so I know one is like add in something like a Peregrine Took or something. Peregrine Took is whenever you would create a token, you create that many plus of food. So then you can, if you have a free artifact sack outlet, you can sacrifice the food token, which will make a squirrel and a food, and then sacrifice the food token, squirrel and a food to make infinite ETBs, infinite creature tokens. So there are ways like that you can go infinite with. I don't think it's like... They're like 3-piece combos that probably aren't better than what we already have in Modern, but definitely good like against the odds episodes or fun things to add to a commander deck or something.
Flavor fail.
Richard.
Why are we eating up garbage on a squirrel? that should be
a raccoon. Yeah, that should be a raccoon.
If you really want to think about it, like little cute Camellia here is like eating like Tarmogoyf in the graveyard and popping out a squirrel. So raccoons, why don't they have the scavenge mechanic? It's basically scavenge, right? Or wait, what is the scavenge mechanic actually? I don't remember what it even is.
No one does, but it's you pay.
You pay the
X
mana value and then put the +1/+1 counters on something, right? But I don't like my cute squirrels eating up my dead bodies in my graveyard. They should have just sacked foods.
Richard, have you not seen a horror movie?
No, that's more, Krim. This is cute cuddly. That's cute cuddly Bloomburrow we're on here.
Cute. No. Like Richard. Come on, squirrels work. They could do. I mean, I will say that this would have been cooler as a raccoon, but that's because I think raccoons are the cutest little like critters ever. But yeah, like the Camellia, I think doesn't. I don't need it to like. Be all whatever you were just describing there. I think the point is you could see animals in this set doing things outside of like, just it's one archetype. So you're seeing more like squirrels doing more different things here.
And because you're playing Camellia in a squirrel deck, you're actually eating squirrels out of your graveyard. So it's actually Camellia the Cannibal. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. You've got cannibals baby making this set.
On that note, before we get to the next card, we got a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Shopify. We've been using Shopify for years to run our merch store, MTGGoldfishMerch.com. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from the launch your online shop stage to our first real-life store stage, all the way to the did a million order stage. Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soaps or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What's great about Shopify is it works no matter how big you are. From selling your first tokens to handling your huge ebb and flow playmat campaign, everything was a breeze due to Shopify. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and Shopify is a global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow on Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/goldfish. All lowercase letters. Go to shopify.com/goldfish now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/goldfish.
All right, let's talk about mice. Emberheart Challenger. 1 in a red, 2/2. Creature, Mouse Warrior. Haste. Prowess. Valiant. New mechanic. Whenever Emberheart Challenger becomes a target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card.
This card is so strong.
Sweats for a second. Is that Nadu? Hold on. Let me keep reading.
So Valiant, at first glance, it looks like bad heroic. It's heroic, but only once a turn. But the upside is it does work on abilities, which does open up the Nadu stuff. And also, now that we've seen more of the set, it does really fit the mouse theme. Mouses are kind of about mice are kind of about targeting each other with their abilities. So I think in the context of mice, it makes a lot of sense. More importantly, this is just a really strong aggro card. The history of 2-mana 2/2 hasters in standard in red is really good. Going back to Ash Zealot back during the Snapcaster era. We even see it now with Blood Tithe Harvester. What's the red 2-drop haster that you can flashback a spell for 5 mana? Blood something that's rotating. But regardless,
bloodthirsty adversary.
Yeah, that's the one. Bloodthirsty adversary is going to be rotating. So I feel like 2/2 haste for 2 in red is already a playable stat line typically, and then you get prowess on top of it, and then you get the ability to generate card advantage in some sort of mono red deck that's playing Monstrous Rage, Slick Shot, Show Off, prowess style deck. We have the Gruul deck in standard that's all about throwing these pump spells at my creatures. This card just seems very strong.
Yeah, I'm in love with this card. I think this card is very powerful. Because just for those exact reasons that you mentioned, I mean, I there's going to be a lot of targeting, and you're right. The monster roll tokens, those cards that make those, then you've got whatever that pump spell that always gets me because I forget exists, where if it connects, they shatter an artifact.
Oh,
red already, yeah. That card randomly gets me all the time. I'm like, I'll play Celestis. I will lose Celestis. Okay. But I think this card is going to be solid. And I'm curious to see what the rest of the mice work together. Because as of right now, what is mice? Probably red white.
It's Boros, yeah.
So then that means red white is going to be that's everything Valiant plays so well into what red white does. Being able to also distribute. Oh, I guess this might. That season of Gathering we were talking about, targeting of counters. This is where that's going to feel a little annoying if there's a lot of new formatting where targeting doesn't happen anymore. But getting cards that target your ability, pump spells, distribution of 1/1 counters. This card and Valiant looks like it's going to be pretty strong. I like the use of abilities on this as well.
Yeah, I want to see the other Valiant cards because for all you Naru lovers, you can always just take your Spring Heart Nantaku over here, and then combo with Nantaku, Valiant, and Shuko, right? Because it's once per turn, and then the Nantaku will copy a creature, and then you can just trigger that again with Shuko, and then do that again. So depending on what your payoffs are, you might be able to get somewhere. Really strong.
If
2 mana, 3/3 on triggering a spell, and then you get whatever that spell's effect is. It'll be solid. Depends if mono red is a thing, and it probably will be. So
yeah, there's a lot of mono red pieces surviving rotation. If you want a hot take that I will probably regret in 6 months, I think mice are actually going to be top tier in post rotation standard. I think legitimately Boros mice is going to be like a real tier aggro deck.
I mean,
Did you hear the thunder and gong going off in the background? You just put it in stone, and now
if it's not mice,
gonna
it'll
yell
be
at us.
rabbits, or it'll be frogs. It'll be something equally ridiculous. But Doctor Who said my aversion.
I'm there for the mice. I love mice.
You love mice, but you can't take a man eating a sandwich. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go gruel. Let's go raccoons. Mura, trash tactician. Oh, okay. Now the raccoons are all about the trash, huh? Legendary creature, raccoon warrior. It's a 2/4. At the beginning of your first main phase, add red or green for each raccoon you control. Whenever you expend 4, gain 3 life. So you expend 4 as you spend your 4th total mana to cast spells during a turn. Whenever you expend 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library until in return you may play those cards. So expend only when you cast spells, not abilities, right?
Hold on, wait.
expend even a
Hold on. How's that ability work?
So you have it on the
they made a
battlefield,
mechanic
and then
that
when you
is
use the
just
4th
play
mana,
magic and we'll do the thing. Like if you cast your spells, we'll do things. That's all it is. When you spend your 4th mana of the turn, you get the ability. When you spend the 8th mana of the turn, you get the next one. It's like the least mechanic-y mechanic I've ever seen.
Wait. Seth, are you telling me when you cast a second creature each turn, or when you cast a second spell each turn, is somehow like more legitimate than expending?
I don't know why expending to me just feels like, do I need a reward for just casting my spells? I was gonna do that anyway. Do I really need a reward for? I mean, I'll take it. Sure, I'll gain some life, but I don't know if you need to reward me for that.
Life, and you will like it.
So this card I think is actually better than it looks. One of the things to keep in mind is you're evaluating these Bloomburrow cards, especially for raccoons, which is not exactly a supported creature type, or some of those other creature types that don't have much support, is you look at the ceiling and you're like, oh, I'm never going to have a ton of raccoons on the battlefield. There's just not enough of them. But I don't think you need that, right? If this is a 3 mana 2/4, it by itself is a raccoon, so it makes the extra mana each turn, and it's gaining life and generating card advantage, that's perfectly fine. I don't think you need to have 5 raccoons on the battlefield to have this be some crazy thing. I think just by itself, like in some sort of ramp deck, it seems pretty reasonable where you're ramping up, eventually you're gaining life, generating card advantage. I actually kind of like this card, not in a raccoon deck, but just as like in a ramp deck or some sort of like big mana ramping into a tally style deck.
I mean, can like green red decks even use the mana? I mean, they clearly they have a surplus ways of doing it, actually. Like I think this is going to be interesting. I want to see more raccoons, because also this kind of looks like a rabid zombie squirrel, or like more than a raccoon. I don't know what
got claws on his hands. He's got, if you look at the art, he's got like Wolverine claws or something. I think he's LARPing Wolverine.
He must, because like this is like a cursed looking raccoon. They're supposed to be cute. Like they have the tiny little hands, and I'm like, this is like, dude, those are disgusting. What happened? And it looks like he's like partially infected.
He's got the rabies.
I thought raccoons. He does look like he's got rabies, but I think raccoons, I want to see more of them. I want to see what they all do. Like, is the raccoon mechanic expend? Because if so, I'm kind of like not high on this mechanic yet, but mostly just because you don't really do anything. As you mentioned, it's just you play magic and you get it. So I'm curious to see how the rest of this
Are
plays.
so hung up on that one. Oh, look,
But
I'm
getting to
I
see-
play the second spell this turn and trigger a bunch of crap. Like, now you're green. I spend my 8th mana casting a spell. Something happens. Like, it's the same thing, right?
I will
Is it-
say,
I mean, I
of all the raccoons we've seen so far, Krim, I think there's 7. 6 of them have expend 4 on them. So if you do put a bunch of raccoons together, like that's kind of the game plan you're going for, is like spending a bunch of mana to trigger their abilities. So that is kind of the goal, I think, of raccoons.
You need buyback. This is this is what we need. The problem is you have like so much mana and then you can't trigger your thing, but since it's each turn, you can cast an instant with buyback or something on their turn, and then continue to trigger this.
Shine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm surprised Seth knows who Wolverine is, but let's go to Long
I
River.
only learned that from you guys. Yeah.
Long River's Pull.
seen the trailers.
Oh, Krim hasn't seen this one. Okay. Double blue, instant. It's a frog coming at you. It's a counter spell, okay? Counter target creature spell. If the gift was promised, instead counter target spell. What is gift? Well, you can gift a card.
Yo,
You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast the spell. If you do, they draw a card before its other effects.
wait, is this?
What does this even
Is this
mean? This
counter
means
spell?
before this gets resolved, right?
Yeah,
Can you draw into a counter and counter this card? Is the question?
I don't believe I actually don't know, I guess. Doesn't the whole card have to resolve? I feel like the whole card
usually,
has to
right?
resolve.
But then what does this clause mean then? If they do draw a card before its other effects, like what does that mean?
I think it's just like the top-down
they
order.
draw before.
Oh, because it's
before
reminder
anything else
text.
triggers.
It actually goes at the bottom, but because it's reminder text, it's sitting on top.
I think so. So I think technically they'll draw first, but I don't think they can use the spell they drew before your spell resolves.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait till we get the official rulings to be 100%.
I mean, regardless of whatever it is, all I'm seeing is counterspell, right? This is in counter
your opponent
target
draws a card.
spell.
You're the control mage, Krim. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? So we're losing Make Disappear in Standard, right? We got No More Lies just still,
Yeah.
but like we're losing Make Disappear. How good is this effect? So 2 mana double blue counter creature spells, so like Essence Capture, kind of. But then if you give your opponent a card, you can hit any spell with this. Is this like a staple level counter spell, a fringe counter spell? How good do you think it is?
I think I'm willing to say that maybe I'm wrong here, but I think this is pretty strong. No More Lies existing is really nice. I think but I like a counter spell for a creature, but then a hard counter, and all you do is draw a card like that.
Do we
In
not
Standard,
have
I
Essence
can see me
Scatter
playing
nor
this.
cancel in Standard? We must, right? Like, wouldn't you play one of those?
Cancel 3 mana. I would
But this
play
is 2 mana, give your opponent back a card in grindy mid-range Standard. Like, is that... I guess if you're a combo deck or something, you might not care about this, but if it's anything but that, you probably care about giving your opponent back a card, right?
But what if you think of it as like, okay, play this as a Essence Scatter, which I believe is in Standard right now. So I'm playing this to counter a creature spell, but then, oh my god, they have some busted Planeswalker. Oh my god, they're about to like Sunfall my board or something. And you like, 10% of the time, 20% of the time, you use it like an actual counter spell to deal with something like that. Like, is that worth it? Like, how painful is giving your opponent a single card? Like, it hurts, right?
It's double blue Essence Scatter. It's double blue Essence Scatter. It seems kind of sus.
But I mean, I'm willing to bet though. Like, I'm a betting man, and I think that well, not really. I actually don't really like betting, but the main thing is I think on average what you're going to draw and what I'm trying to counter, if I'm in the situation where I need to gift you a card, the card's probably pretty good, right? So I'm willing to offer the chance that whatever you're going to draw is not an Avengers level threat like that. So
let me introduce you to 2024 Standard. Everything's an Avengers level threat.
Yes, but I've grown numb to it, right? It's like, oh, like yes, everything is powerful. I've just had to adjust, right? Like, oh, maybe we don't need to counter the Graveyard Trespasser. I'll let the Trespasser live because Void Rend. But I won't have Void Rend anymore.
You discard Long River's Pull to the Ward of Trespasser. I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
Yeah.
No. So standard aside, this mechanic is on a bunch of different cards. So there's gift a card, there's gift like a tap fish, there's gift a food token. The most common is gift a card, though. I think that this is like one of the best commander mechanics they've made in a long time. Like, it plays really well in commander, right? Because you get to gift any opponent the card. I can counter Crim spell, but give Richard the card or Toma the card if I want to, or I can give it to Crim to like kind of make it a little less painful, like an Arcane Denial. So it kind of involves the whole table. It's got the interaction that you want in a multiplayer format. What do you guys think of this gift mechanic for commander in specific?
Okay, first off, I didn't know it worked that way. That's right. You could you may promise an opponent.
Yep.
So wait, hold on. Really? I can just give it to anybody? Yo, that's sick. That's super sick.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, wow. Hold on. That's kind of really
card.
cool.
Oh, give it to that guy 2 tables over. He's my opponent.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like somebody interrupts your game. Sorry, I'm promising your opponent a card. Like, fuming. But yeah, like legitimately, that's actually. I didn't think it worked that way because it didn't say target, but I just had auto assumed it would be the person you're countering.
Yeah, no.
So it gifting a card now, I know Richard's got to love this mechanic because between Skullwinder, Secret Rendezvous, all of those. Okay, I like this. I think gift is super cool. I think this is super, 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 super cool. At first, when I read it the way it was, I thought it was like, okay, cute. Make the counterspell feel a little less like Sag, but now you can promise it anywhere, and that's good.
All right, this is how you know I woke up too early. I actually hate this mechanic, and it's funny.
How?
So there are certain things I hate that I play for the memes. So for example, I think Fog is incredibly oppressive and overpowered, but because everyone thinks it sucks, I keep playing it, and I gleefully play it because it's funny to me that I play this card that everyone thinks sucks, and it's actually OP. Secret Rendezvous is way too strong, but nobody sees it. Nobody understands. So I keep playing it to like rub it in your faces. The gift mechanic is too strong, right? And Wizards clearly doesn't think so because they printed it on like every single card. So if you look at the table, right, if you are not the person gifted anything, the person that cast the spell and the gift taker like slingshot ahead of the rest of the table. It's a very strong spell if you're facing against it, in the same way that Secret Rendezvous is a 3-mana draw 6 if you're not one of the recipients of the cards for your opponents, right? That's insanely oppressive. So I actually don't like this. It's gonna look like trade secrets, trade routes, whatever that card is. I don't like gifting things for free and then considering it a cost, but it's not actually a cost, right? Because you're giving it to different opponents. So I would much rather like it if it worked the way Crim thought it would, where you gift the opponent that got the bad thing that happened to them the card back. Like it would work in 1v1, right? In 1v1, these cards are complete trash. But in multiplayer, because you give it to your buddy and you can get a promise back. They're insanely OP, and I don't like it. And there's gonna be some broken gift cards in here. In the same way, I think
gift is trash in 60 cards.
Well, usually, like the downside is like an actual downside, right? But in Commander, it's all upside. Like these read no downside at all, right? Like absolutely zero downside. Every argument for Secret Rendezvous can be applied here. You give it to the weaker person that can't affect you. They're so behind it doesn't matter, right? Or you promise it to someone for a favor in exchange, right? It's all upside in multiplayer. Whereas it's like all downside in 1v1, right? Like, no, they're going to use that card, they're going to kill you, right? So you got to actually take that downside into consideration. So I actually don't like it. I actually don't want more Secret Rendezvous in the format. It's too good.
So you think it's too strong, basically? I mean, I think it is really powerful. I just like how it plays. I feel like it's resolving this one counterspell. Normally resolving a counterspell is like kind of a feel bad, right? Like maybe for the person resolving it, it's good, but it feels bad for the person whose spell's getting countered. With a card like this, I like that it can minimize that and that it can engage the rest of the table. Normally when someone's spell's getting countered, you got 2 people that aren't even involved with the interaction. This gift mode is going to get the table talking. Everyone's going to want the gift. So I like that it's going to add that interaction to the game. So yeah, maybe it ends up being like very strong. I think that's a reasonable argument, but I think it's going to play, I hope, in a pretty positive way. Or maybe it ends up being more of a feel bad if you get your spell countered and know the person could have given you a card to make up for it, but chooses not to. So maybe it makes it even worse, the rub-ins.
That case, if it makes them feel worse, then this mechanic is amazing. I love it. I want them to get countered, and I want them to feel the pain.
All right, let's talk about Sunspine Lynx. 4 mana,
Yes!
red, 2 red, 5/4. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. When it ETBs, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls.
Do you feel personally targeted, Richard?
I don't know why it says that. I play Price of Progress more than any of y'all.
I know.
What are you talking
The
about?
anti-fog meta, though. I'm more.
It does wreck the fog
not the
meta.
Price of Progress, but the fog that it shuts off because damage can't be prevented this turn, hurts.
Yeah.
But this also, wow. I think this card is gonna be sweet and standard, right? Like, as of right now, I'm thinking of my mana base, and oh my god, I would die.
Price of
bad.
Progress hasn't been in
Oh,
standard in like forever, right?
Oh, literally.
Yeah. And
like
Price of
Exodus or
Progress
something.
attached to a body is a body that is big and does a lot of work here. I think this card is gonna. This just looks so good. And in Commander, obviously, this is great. It's not stacks. Don't worry, I answered it for you, Seth. But like, I think this card is just an all-star. I really like this card.
Oh, the card's so good. If you look at standard mana bases, and we are going to go through rotation, so we'll see if it changes, but even a lot of the 2-color decks are playing around like 5-ish basics a lot of the time. So most decks, that ETB is going to deal a huge amount of damage, plus it shuts down life gain, and it shuts down damage being prevented, which almost makes me wonder if this could see modern play. I think there's been a lot of conversations about the One Ring. I don't know if this will end up being good enough because it is 4 mana, but it seems like it's designed to line up really well with the One Ring, where if someone taps out for the One Ring, you can follow up by playing this, hopefully dome them for a bunch of damage thanks to their non-basics, and it gets around like the life gain prevention, so you can swing with the rest of your team and maybe close out the game. So I don't know. I'm going to try to modern even. What do you think about modern?
Wait,
you were requesting
in case of emergency, break out the Tarmogoyfs.
We're going back. This is what's gonna resurrect Judd. 4 mana Price of Progress through a One Ring. I'm gonna say that this will be modern playable somewhere. But I'm gonna say it warps standard to the extent that you will want it to be banned. Right? This takes off 2, 3-color, 4-color decks off the table. You like Price of you can't put Price of Progress in standard, right? Like everyone will be forced to play basic. So I hope mono white is a deck or something, right? Because no one else will be able to line up against this, right? It prevents life gain, damage, and Price of Progress on a 4 mana 5/4 on the way down.
Like, good luck playing your 3-color deck. You tap out for something, you dead, right? Like,
if you're not counterspell like India, they're gonna they're not gonna play this into your counterspells. They're gonna wait and let you counter all their other stuff. This I was thinking that too as I was reading this, and I kept reading it over and over. I think this might actually get banned.
I mean, it is just one damage. It is just one damage
shot
compared to Price of Progress. Price is double, right? So it is like half the amount of damage, but you're getting this big body on top of it. I don't know. Is it really that problematic? Or is it like, do we want like the domain deck was the first thing I thought of. That's just like, oh, ramp into a Troxa. Like maybe it's good that decks like that have some more counter play. Kind of like, I don't know. If I get wrecked by this commander, maybe that's a good thing because I'm playing 2 basics. Well, yeah, then I get good, I guess. I don't know what to say about the frogs. Like that's unfortunate, but
I think honestly, okay, even if it's just 1 damage, it really comes down to like what the mana bases look like post rotation, right?
Yeah.
If it's going to be 2+ colors, even 2+ color decks are still running like maybe, as you mentioned, like 5 to like 7 basics, right? And 7 is on the high end. With that in mind, like this just in multiples, being able to deal like 4 or 5 each time is a lot of damage.
Oh, yeah.
And the one thing I know people are going to complain about is having to get punished for their mana base. And I imagine in standard, That's going to be a big thing. I think this will be something that'll get a lot of people heated. Red deck is already looking pretty good. This really pushes red deck.
And people already get salty about losing to to mono red, especially in best of one. So yeah, maybe this does end up being kind of a salty card. But
counterplay. You have to counterspell it. Like,
outside of literally counterspell.
You have to counterspell it.
Yeah.
Like, it comes down and it just hits you. Like, even if it just does like 4 or 3 and they come down in like multiples, like you still gotta deal with the body. Right? Like it's not like
got a good body.
You fade the thing. So I think it'll be forcing people into 1 to 2 color decks. Like, because imagine you like go to, like, you can't flood out. You don't want to play extra lands, so you just sit there at like 4 lands and then hope that's enough, right? Because imagine it does like 8 damage or something on the way in. That's like absurd, right? You're dead, so you can't afford that situation.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a timeline where red decks, it's such an essential spell to resolve, they just play Cavern out of the board
Cavern on
to
Lynx.
push this through.
Cavern on Lynx. Okay. Speaking of non-basic lands, 3 Tree City, legendary land. As it enters, choose a creature type. Tap to add a colorless 2 mana. Tap, choose a color, and an amount of mana of that color equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type. Great. A Nick
those for creature types. Like literally nick those for creature types. I will say, I think it's a little less powerful than Nykthos, right? I think it's easier to add a bunch of mana symbols to the battlefield than add that many creatures to the battlefield. Maybe discounting like certain token producers, like X token producers that are just like make a ton of the same thing. So I think it's like, it is less powerful than Nykthos. I still think the card's very strong though, especially in the context of Bloomburrow, which is all about these like decks built around the same creature type. And I think that's what they were going for, is to give these decks like some sort of big payoff. So I think I would play this in basically every like tribal commander deck, and the same with standard too. I think even though it's not as good as Nykthos, I think it's still a very powerful effect.
I mean, yeah, like I in commander this will be an all-star. I think in any kind of typal deck at all. But I am gonna probably go out on a limb and say that in standard, maybe this is the one that gets me in hot water here. I think in standard, this is just average, and I think there's going to be better. Coming into play. Does it enter tapped?
It's
no.
untapped.
Okay,
it is untapped.
But it only makes colorless mana until you use
it only makes colorless mana
mode.
Maybe no. I still feel like this is kind of hard, right? Because more often than not, if you're playing, everyone knows that. First off, if I see a mouse, I'm gonna have to remove that, because every single one of these mice so far have already proven to be a threat. Sweepers, like are gonna be running rampant. So there's a strong chance that because you have to rely on the creatures, this is definitely a win more. Right? Like this is definitely a win more, and I'm not sure if this is gonna be as powerful in standard. It's still good. It's still very good, I guess.
I mean,
but yeah,
you have
I think
Offspring, which is making you like extra creatures. You have the rabbit tokens.
That's true.
How you might try to free roll it, but then Sunspine Lynx comes and says hi. You're like, well, sometimes I'll get more than 2 mana, so it's worth. But then, but more times I'll take an extra damage from Sunspine Lynx, so maybe not. So you have that choice to make. But depends on I don't think you jam in a random deck. You have to be some kind of like token deck.
Oh yeah,
I think that.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, right? If you're playing frogs and you're like, I'm just going to try to play 1 frog each turn, and like that's my game plan, you're just not going to get enough on the battlefield, because you need 4 creatures on the battlefield of the same type before this actually is mana positive. On the other hand, if you're playing like rabbits, we talked about the white season paw thing that's just like make 5/1/1s. If you're doing stuff like that, that's where the card becomes much more exciting, if you're able to offspring a bunch of the same creature type on the battlefield or use token producers. So I think you're right, it probably doesn't even go in every deck that's coming out of Bloomburrow, but I think in the right deck, it's a really strong effect. Like Nykthos is just so strong that even being like 70% of Nykthos, I think is a card that can be very powerful in the right deck. Or like elves in commander. So it's like decks like that are just so good at like spewing their hand. It seems, it's kind of like Gaia's Cradle at home almost, if you think about it.
I mean, it is Gaia's Cradle in an elf deck. Especially token
In and
producers,
out,
since they don't have pips normally, depending on what make. Okay, last card. The Otter himself, Ral Crackling Wit. 2 blue and a red. 4 mana value Planeswalker. It's Ral in Otter form. 4 starting loyalty. Static ability. When you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral. +1, put a +1/+1 blue and red Otter creature token with prowess into play. -3, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. -10, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with instants and sorceries you cast have Storm. How do we feel about Otter Ral here?
I don't know how Ral became an otter, but whatever. It's cute. I like it. Sure. Not gonna question the logistics of that, I guess. But okay, this is good, right? For a Storm deck? I think this is good.
What kind of Storm deck?
Like a
modern
standard
Storm deck or a
deck?
standard Storm deck?
I guess, yeah, like, well, maybe not Modern Storm. Maybe not Modern Storm, but like,
It's so tough.
it's good enough for standard?
If I read through the abilities, it reads a lot like Jaya that I was so high on. I think we both might have been.
We were high on.
Yeah, okay. Like, but it reads a lot like Jaya with the like plus make a token, minus draw some cards, ultimate win the game. I think what sets it apart though is gaining loyalty whenever you cast a non-creature spell. We've seen like Flip Ral be really, really strong in Modern because you're able to rush to ultimating it thanks to a similar-ish style ability. So I think that's what makes me excited for this card. I don't think it's going to make it a Modern Storm, but if you look at Otters, they're kind of about storming off in Standard, essentially. None of them have literal storm except for Ral, but they're all about like how many instances of sorceries you cast during the turn, spell slinging. So I think it's going to be, I'm going to say it's a good Standard card, even though Jaya flopping does make me a little nervous that I'm falling for the same exact trap I did like 2 years ago.
Jaya didn't have a straight up draw 3, ditch 2, right? Like she allowed you to exile
it was like
2,
impulse
but
draw,
like
right?
yeah. And on top of that, Jaya didn't have this passive, like you had mentioned. I think this passive makes it good if there is some kind of like wild spell slinging deck, which I think there has to be. There's enough good cheap spells. Right? Because between this and Slick Shot, Show Off, or whatever, they're clearly building and hinting at some kind of prowess, spell slinger kind of deck too.
Yeah. And the otters in the set, there's like a Jeskai Ascendancy otter, there's like a Thermo Alchemist otter, there's like a whole bunch of like otters that care about slinging a bunch of spells. So I think there will be a deck for it in Standard, and it'll be really good in that deck.
Are you guys Team Otter or something? Like, why do you... This card sucks. Like,
really? You don't like it?
You have to 4 mana, pass the turn, untap, and then hope you storm off, right? Like, it's your storm payoff, but it's so... not payoff, engine piece, but it's so expensive, right? Like, you really want it to be like 2 mana, so you can actually make it a 4 mana, play the piece, go off, and then like do the thing. But you play this, +1, go to 5, untap, play 5 more spells, and then minus without a cost reduction here. Like, what does this even do? 4 mana, -3? Like, brainstorm, basically, right? Like, look at, like, basically fix your hand by 3. This is unplayable unless you really need Ral as an otter for your thematic nights. I don't know. What do you do with this?
Can you do it slowly, though? You just, like, play it, make a token, and then next turn cast a couple spells, and then, like, maybe 2 or 3 turns later, you get to ultimate and, like, storm off. Like,
but you're a storm
like,
deck.
like,
don't you want to win faster than this? Because you're playing all instant
We're in Standard, though. We're in Standard. We gotta judge it based on the Standard scale. Like, yeah, it's not gonna do what Modern Storm does, but in Standard, maybe you don't gotta be quite as efficient. I don't know. Maybe if this flops, I'm so sad because of the Jaya thing. I can't miss on another 4 mana Planeswalker. Someone break this card real quick.
There's no way Wizards will make Storm good in Standard, and you just remove it with Planeswalker removal. Like, that's the problem with this, right? Like, there's easy ways to
roll around, right?
Yeah. But that's just the nature of every Planeswalker. They need buffs because of that card. However, I do think this is a Planeswalker where, as like maybe Jaya or some other things, I could let you untap. This one, I feel like I'm worried if I let you untap. We'll see. You are right. It is 4 mana. So by then, how many cards will this like prowess base, deck that fires off a bunch of spells, right? Like how many cards will they actually have in hand when I let you untap with this? Because by that point in the game, there's a strong chance that maybe they're already gassed out. So that'll be the one thing that determines whether this card is good or not. Like if there's enough engine pieces to keep these decks going, so when they drop Ral, they can close out.
This is a go face commander. You see this come down, you just go face. You ignore it because let's say you drop on a 4, right? You untap with 5 loyalty on it. You have 5 mana. Can you fire off 5 non-creature spells in standard to get to the ultimate that turn? And even if they do ultimate, you're not dead. They draw 3 cards. And then they pass the turn. Like, it's not like an emblem that lets you cast spells for free or anything, right? It's your future cards have Storm. So they can actually emblem Ral on 5, and you still have another full turn cycle to kill him, right? Before, like, any of this becomes relevant. So I feel this is
say that.
Go face command. You're like, oh,
dude.
cool. You just time walked yourself. Let me just take a little off the top here. Because it doesn't even kill you the next turn, even if they emblem.
Yeah. And if you're not ultimating it is pretty jank. Like making a 1/1 prowess is just, as we've seen with Jaya, like that's not really enough. So you do really need to be working towards ultimate, but I think you can do it. I'm not saying it's going to be a top tier deck or whatever, but it's one of the decks I'm planning on building first because I think there might be enough support to like at least make it good enough
I put it on the lower tier of against the odds. If you tier list all your against the odds decks, I'm going to say something at the bottom.
Oh, no. Wow. Yeah. If it's not even good for against that, that's a problem. Wow.
Come back. We'll see. Maybe they break it. Maybe Wizards want Storm in all formats. Ruby Storm, and then Is It Storm? we're coming back with a vengeance.
The summer of Storm. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of our podcast for today. No fish mail today. Richard, how do people send that in for the future?
All right, hit us up on Twitter at MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
So that brings us to the end of episode 493 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about more Bloomburrow spoilers and whatever else goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have an amazing week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.